have about 10 more questions that came in, and Drupon Rinpoche is going to answer them. So the first question is about the Tsewang Tsimpa practice. I would like to do the Tsewang Tsimpa retreat in the coming weeks. I have done many Vajrayana retreats where mantra is counted. How do I do the 7 days? There's several questions. Maybe I just do it one by one.
쇼기 튜는 배샤라서 쇼기 튜는 거네 쇼하마 동도 초선 동으로와 디나 그래서 와서 조려 삼하라 디나 와도 이제 거의 나와도 이제 되게 삼하라 아니 야 티미나 어떻게 초선 동으로와 쇼기 되면 그 쇼기 뒤 초선 동 어들이 마드네 자시 조나 저기 뭐 완전 자신도 어디 지대 홍들이 너서야 장가서야 어들이 나 뒤 신바도 저기 관동错嘛同这小姐公大的千多的店嘛你多多嘛大呀你的东那的凶肉这些我这你嘛推些推你过你不这咋错没吧几天多的嘛这说嘛同这小姐
Die Tünschebatten und der Champion der Mara Schebatten. Die Hunger Katze kommen. Katze so gore.
Ni 말을 니 식동 나기도 와. 언제나 니 식동 동 거래.
니 말이야. 니 맞더라.
리노. 지난 내가 보지. 그래서 신비가 미가 저러. 디나 미바도 가지 못해. 금대티나. 그 미렘티나 왔다.
So if you do a retreat for 7 days, then you should divide each day into 4 sessions, and the talk, the feast offering, you can do that in the morning in the first session. There was one verse that you might have noticed the Lamas recited, which was the conferring of the empowerment, which was not in the text we had, so we need to add that. But then you would also do that, so the empowerment, and then the whole text, and conclude with dedication and words of auspiciousness. And then basically the recitation is just accumulating Hong, and 21,000 Hongs a day, so for 7 days each day. And then in the last session, which is session number 4, you do the Dharma offerings at the end, for the command, which is the Chemdo, and then the Dema goddesses. So that's in the last session only, and the talk is in the first session only. So the practice actually seems to be quite easy to do. The visualization for the mantra recitation is also very concise and very clear. Then the same question continues. Wait a minute. Begin with the sadhana at each. I see. So I guess we answered that. Begin with the sadhana at each session, or only the first session. Yeah, so I think we answered that. Rinpoche answered that already. Because we begin. Basically, you do it the same in every session, except for the first session you do the talk, and the last session you do these 2 Dharma offerings at the end. And then let's see. When I have done Guru Padmasambhava healing mantra for 3 days, the mantra was all that I spoke for those 3 days. Is that recommended? Then it did some deva gabla. Then kungma di dira nima somla Guru Rinpoche di natsa dai ngagin sarava. Di chipodin nima somla da ngak chipodin. Then di nima sombola then Kashin ba kayan drama, kayan ba lab me.
Yeah.
Dinang shin chi go de.
Oh, the China yaw kasana. Ngasi kasi China yaw res ha. Nimba de nupachi. The yaw res ke cha lapshi lapta zalri. Ngasi China nimba de nupa chigri zong.
So that would be good, actually. Actually, the more silent you are in the retreat, the better it is, because now that the power of the mantra declines the more we talk. So therefore, if we remain silent, then the power of the mantra will be much stronger. Is it important to keep the visualization of the deity during the mantra? Dineti hungom tu nimbaton tu revan tikapla la gom go reven di chachang gom go reven.
Tambo so jenem no ji ma la gom rewa. Da de ti hong gom de ti hong ra mi pa zo chi. Chi go da de la mix gom do ya an di nyam tyung gom la shi la hong ti mi pa chi na. Ho de zo de chi rewa. Tambo la gom de an samsam hong ti sem ne ma to da na la de zin de chon de shu. Se gom do chang sen de zo di sen de.
Yeah. So the generation stage, the visualization of the deity, is before we come to the Hong recitation. So while you are reciting, you're reading the visualization of the deity, focus on it. But when you come to the Hong recitation, then focus mainly on the Hong. Because it's generally difficult to to hold too many visualizations in mind at the same time. So at that time, the main focus is the Hong. Sometimes if you find that your mind is a bit restless, then you can change it up a little bit and sometimes come back to the deity and just visualize the deity and then take turns like that and come back to the Hong syllable. Can one keep up the mantra and walk about, say, the yard, or stay only on the cushion?
Then there is some person. I'm Drushin Drushi, me by the main, but you know, there is some person, Sukadushina. Me by me, Kitchi, who think by my own chiat. What they make by mine, come by just some that China, Yamachina, that is Rumbush is also Milarepa song. Rengan Drushin. Rodo Kurvashi, Tama was on wanted, Drush did it in Yamlena.
So it is fine if you walk around a little bit once in a while in your practice, as long as you don't fall into distraction. That's really most important, to be undistracted. As long as you're not distracted, sometimes you can get up and walk around. Actually, today Rinpoche quoted Milarepa. Milarepa said that when you walk around, you should see walking around as a circumambulation. So that's walking with mindfulness. How do they? Let me see if this is one question or more. Let me just read all. How do the Pure Lands relate to the 6 realms of samsara? If someone is born in a Pure Land, do they still need the aspects of the precious human birth to support them on the path? And are they still subject to karma? Or is there a different set of rules operating there? Let's see. Okay. I sometimes wonder why would one make an aspiration to be reborn in a Pure Land rather than simply aspiring to achieve full enlightenment as quickly as possible? It's all kind of one question. Okay. So it's all one question. So is it better to stick to one aspiration and repeat it often, or to make many different aspirations? For example, to cover the possibility that one might not achieve one's first choice. Is it better to make aspirations that seem more achievable in this lifetime? Maybe I have to break it up. 미치랑래 데 카이스나 신캄라 게발렌 요나 데네 문에만 tilab기어라면서 상게 거나 데네 밀르름 버진 거라
레레
데네 간서 신캄라 게발렌나 페나 데바제
레레
밀르름 버지가 말아
레레
데네 간서 상게 두두두에스
아네
데네 양 신캄티란 도바르 도겨라 딘다 덴 디스트라바 여라
신캄렌 도바르도
말에 신캄 저바 당보도 신캄단 도바르 도긴 저바
아네
아타디 폴라레가
레레
가이상서 도바르 도라바
레레
문에만 상게 거나 이나 게발렌 거가
레레 말렌
Tene con su bena deva channel
Re ha
valenza to tene tarong sangi esa marava
mare
sangi mena tene tarong le yorva le yana koran so kim khaga rebe tene yena kain se nangaso sama kan kyokyo sangi go yorva malanga
re
tene koran ke samna la pache milerum pache mara sangi ya mara tene dende Teni ganso tataba deva chenki wa shoso masala ki yorwa.
Re.
Teni kenza wa disto. Ai senga so yang sangi wa shola beta.
No.
Teni dis kalta mendo em.
Ya.
Teni kamot.
Ya. Roba ri ro. Da te ngin roba ri chou da, ji dang ko da ri ro ni nyam le chi. Na zin roba ri chou nyam le ko chi na be jia la. Ji zi Milarepa song shuo. 마다 풍부 남가 다 비자와랑한 메토 조렘 한 스틱스 메토 조렘 한 지과레 스코니 냠나치나 어떤 정도 그 풍부도 바르장도 냠나치도 자와레 냥신감 텐주제지기로와 이나 다자다디 대화전 신감 지야래라 그래서 신감 힘바도 지야가래 하고 그랬어 대화전 신감한테 뭐남제도 제거랬어 어다 대화전 신감한테 제고야 돼 그래서나 참이라가 스코시 되는 종요래 그래서 그 공천배 몰라 망보동 있어. 천배 몰라 망보제 동도 천바 상 마지 화스고 제바 망보스 내가도 있어.
속에
장미라 아스구나. 장미코나.
제바 속에 상상.
장미코나도 제바 배 망보 내가도 천바 상제 야라 배 유령 공부를 그러와.
천바상.
저와서 제바 망보 내 배 망보 시고도 있어.
그래.
너 시고 그러와요. 그러 제바 대뒤제 천배 코르토만 라스제들이 냠냐치야. 상제야는 우리 도스 대화전 모남점 대화전 신감된 조보전 도스 대지에서도 들할 동안만 도스 답이 신감 가라이나 들할 성마도 추우쇼추 저 상제 거리 충고고는 대 추우쇼추 근데 그 냠난진 바 시초서로 어들이 다 대화전 들이 파세전 포드 상제로 그랬어 어떤 정도 어때 대화전 신감 동아요 말이야 동아서 매이 코죠 말이야 된 조보 상제 마도 들할 진내 냠내 진내 되네 상지 군도 추쇼 소소 냠내 치트 진내 되네 상지야 손조고 상지 소비야 또 물이랑나 또 제바지 매고 말 상지 대바전 조상고서
대바전나 고랑 샘나라 대바전나 상기야 면도
어다 상제 그 상제로 쇼사데 그게 마밀랑 대바전 신경 제테네 되네 봐 대바전 기티 제야 공이 자제 카르도 상제 마토블리 제 요로와젠스 대바전 제 상원의 제 마토블리 제 요로와 레노 제 요로와 대바전 제 제나 상원의 제 토요 말와샤데 요 말하다 오바미 또 근데 추쇼다 종쇼와 참미데 모토 좀 저 올라셔 참미데 와타서 제방 가자 태솜전에서 효라 태솜전 대바전 모나전 제지 말해서 나 메토 베마 카솜도레스 메제 토베 태솜전 로장가지 와타서 좀와 나한테 대치 롱조 상제종 통내 메토 칸네 메제스 그래서 나 대치 롱조 좀도레스 메토 칸 이나한테 메토트 상제종데 토도레스 이나 메토트 카제토 마슬롱 텐데달라 텐데달라 메용효제 그래 제마타도 메토 체제라고 제나도 메토 같이 그래서 이거 소소 태솜 되기래 다리 제진네 제용나 산나 아 어다더니 왜 살해
데닝 근데 맨아스 상게 거나라 무슨 대화ችን 교고라 아 대화ችን 교고라 간신나 대화chen 거 영사다와 찬도 말아.
영사 참 말아.
라래.
라이 나이 말아. 그 추슈 상제 직장된 상제 거리 총나 들어 추슈 저랬어. 어때 대화제 저 랭아 신배 상제서라 추슈 저랬어. 어쩌면서 이제 영으로서 우리께 참도.
Answer this first, then there's a couple more here. So, regarding the 6 realms of samsara and the relation to the Pure Land, so first, if you're able to practice well in the human existence, and Milarepa had said that, so when not realized, then those 5 aggregates are the cause of suffering in samsara, but when realized, then they are they like through the practice in a precious human body, one kind of merges one with the completion stage of non-thought, so one attains enlightenment, and as a result of that, in this lifetime, it is possible that so when those 5 aggregates become purified, that one then takes birth in one of the Pure Lands of the 5 Buddha families. But it's actually not easy to be born in those Pure Lands. It's much easier to be born in Dewachen. And when Chagmeraka Asya was alive, so he actually said that, so when I recited the Maitreya prayer, I recited the Maitreya prayer to be born in Maitreya's Pure Land, but then figured that it takes quite a long time to take birth in Maitreya's Pure Land because it's not so easy. And so before I'm able to take birth there, I have to take birth over and over again, which means I have to die over and over again. And so, so he meant also that because Maitreya Buddha is the next Buddha of this world, and so until he comes, because first of all he has to come, and then next we have to be among his first and foremost retinue of disciples, and then finally one can start the practice to attain enlightenment. So until then, because he's not here yet, many times I will have to take birth and die again. So then he thought that it's much quicker and easier to attain enlightenment if I take birth in Dewachen. So that's why he made this aspiration to take birth in Dewachen. And so in Dewachen, not only does one attain enlightenment quickly, also on top of that, while one is still practicing there's also no suffering. And also one is able to travel to different Pure Lands. For example, one is able to travel to the Pure Lands of the 5 Buddha families. Whenever a Buddha there is giving teachings, then one can just go there and then return to Dewachen and listen to all of these teachings. And then attain enlightenment in Dewachen. And so there's just there's this one cause that causes one to be born in a closed lotus flower. So then in that case, it would take a little bit longer to attain enlightenment. So that is when, if one develops doubt in the Buddha Amitabha and in Dewachen, one can still be born there, but then one will first be born inside a lotus flower that is closed for 500 years. But at the same time, one is in a state of complete happiness and bliss, and one can still hear the Buddha's teachings. And then once one is born in Dewachen, then one can swiftly attain enlightenment. So it's not the case that the Pure Land of Dewachen is not like a god realm where one just experiences bliss, but actually it's a quick path to attain enlightenment. It's not a place of distraction.
다 대화전 신감 제단 도르드나 제단 대화전 신감 제디너와 어떤 추치야 초상 지바장지라 다 되게 냠냐치 상제 추 고르고 직전들 상제 참반에 상제 담아 가정 상제 동 상마 추시 추그레스 어떤 초바치 상제를 초바치 말마다 디 참마를 소소 대화전에 소 용초 준주요레스 직전 페라 가서 왜 유령부 대화장 대 효사래. 저거 상제사마 동아요 말아 동아자야 맞아. 이사제데. 양 동아요 말다. 동아자야 맞아. 라표가 동아자야. 자야 동아도 거죠 말았어 거나. 어디인지 어디서 상제 동상제에서 상마 쇼쇼쇼레스 힘 상제 힘바 쇼쇼쇼. 도르드는 다 동아도 요 말았어. 냠나도 상제도 쇼쇼 콘트 소 대신에데 되게 상제로 그래서. 물루라 대바지 상제 대하고 좀 말아 다지다 물루나 라면다 요로와 다 냠나쇼 체도냐이나 자 세제 루지 미라레파 동인 시 말와 대미나 제시나 물룬다 말아 요로와 물루선 물루 젠다면다 요다 제단 야도 니디 냠나 야보 치냐 물루제이나다 양세 자, 안 미라레반데 제제루지 상제로 만한테만 신바도 디스 거르거라 상제 사이치니나 가시가시 때 냠나 치게 말와도 소이나 왜 민두 타포타지나 리치렉 세제하오라 리치렉스나 타고 지나 라이고네다 제야요 말했고 대현이 뭐요 라테니나 타고 춘 냠나 디쇼 까르반다 마중 유링부 밀루냐고 세도 이나 뱅거르거라
So in terms of how long it takes to attain enlightenment, actually it's not so certain that it's quicker in Devachan, but it's more like the safe way to attain enlightenment. Because in Devachan, even though it might take a longer time, one can only practice the Dharma there. So there are no obstacles and there is no suffering and so on. So one just practices the Dharma and accumulates merit and purifies the obscurations. And then then Maitreya comes to the world, and then sometimes one can also receive teachings from him. And then all of the other 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon come and one can receive teachings from him. So that's when I wondered how long it will actually take then until one attains enlightenment. And so it's not so certain, and Drupon said that it might take some time, but at least there is no suffering there. Not even the suffering is heard in Devachan. And one can just practice and increase one's realization and receive teachings there, and one will attain enlightenment. And the thing with a human life is that it could be quicker, but only if one practices really well. For example, like Milarepa, then there is a chance, of course, to attain enlightenment in a single lifetime, in a single body. But then also there's all sorts of different kinds of human beings, so they're not all quite like Milarepa. And for many others, it will take a very long time. And then there's others who don't even want to practice at all. So then it's more difficult. So, for example, in the jewel ornament of liberation is a text. It speaks about there's different kinds of beings, and one is called the class, the kind that is cut off from the family. And actually, nobody is ever really cut off, which means basically you have no hope for enlightenment, but that actually does not exist because everyone possesses Buddha nature. It's just called cut off family because it takes a very long time. If one doesn't practice, then one has to take birth again and again. The next ones I already read to you too. Pena ngati tirwa munlam korwa pena munlam nga tanga Devachan la geva jos munlam ya yana nga ta Milarepa chutina la sang geva jos munlam tisen dangmendwa ina soso tis takchi korwa tini kanisena munlam ni tok marwa yana nga Devachan la giga yana nga Milarepa sang giga tini ta yini da ya pomda
yini teso
tini ta 틱탁 찍어라. 틱담 걸어봐.
네.
틱담나 야거를 왜? 야나 논람 담는다 겸나 야거를.
논람 담는다 겸나 상주 배자 상주 상보주 몰람도. 전정 동나 그 대화진 몰람도 표지 됐어. 그 제가 냠나 야고진 상제 토비아 몰람도 비로. 몰람 지르고 있어. 그라 상주 나이나. 다 간조서 나도 같아 상주대. 상지 진지 납셔 몰람네 살이.
So this question I read before, it was the question about if it's better to stick to one aspiration or and repeat it, or to make different aspirations. And so it's better to make different aspirations. For example, the king of aspiration prayers is the aspiration prayer for excellent conduct, and everything is included within that, all our aspirations and also enlightenment. And it then results in enlightenment. So because it's so all-inclusive, and also because it was blessed by the Buddha himself, it's called the king of aspiration prayers.
Nyamla yapo chi so be mesi nyamla chi tom ko sanje ndo gele te deva jen hin kap jen na jo ko ya sanje to je te nyamla shi ta ma ji na te ti so gele wa te yin je me mo lam ji gu re wa je na ja ka le khabo ti se re je na da sanje ya ji mo lam ji ko da di nyamla shi ta ma ji na sanje to ji mi je mo a da mo lam te so chama da na ri re sam da deva jen hin kap je na ko da sang one ji ma tom deva jen hin kap je na do nga yo ma
But the best thing to do to attain enlightenment is to actually practice. So actually, if you practice really well, really in an authentic way, then also in Devachan you can quickly attain enlightenment. So it's not so certain how long it will really take. It could take longer or shorter. But the point is that if you just focus on aspirations, basically, either I'm going to be enlightened in Devachan, or may I be enlightened in a human body. Only the aspiration prayer, of course we need it, but it alone will not bring you to enlightenment. In order to be enlightened, you have to actually practice. And so we can have a general wish to be enlightened and then make various prayers, such as attaining enlightenment in this life or being born in Devachan. And even if it takes longer in Devachan, at least there's no suffering there.
Devachan de mola table that jeri se zong shura zong dwa de wa de mola table jeri te som jin te me to ka che to mara ra shura o de Devachan je ale la dwa mola de je som dwa no re ra
di song song actually
Devachan je keres de cham mola Devachan mola to na Marimar, Devachan molam suna yore. Molam da ko kai ni mi dam na je to bere so re. Ya te ma te som jin de long ya sa di me to ka che to mar zo ra. Te ndi san ji che o pa mi shen je to ko mar zo ra ti. O te ndi ne san je ya molam ji bu dam na che je san je to ko mar wa. Nyam na shi ra ma ji molam ji bu da di na pe ka le kha wa. Je na de ju chen na san je to ko re wa. San je ya da ni de ju sha ko re te na molam ji bu se je san je to ko mar te. Ja wat kan du yasa say dira.
So yeah, in the prayer of Devachan, it says that if you develop doubts about Amitabha and the Pure Land, then you can still be born there, but you will be born in a lotus flower, which will not open for 500 years. So for 500 years, you cannot see the face of the Buddha Amitabha directly. But then once you're born there, you can attain enlightenment. And so enlightenment does not come from only aspirations. We need them, but we also need to practice. And especially if we want to attain enlightenment in one lifetime, if we just pray for that, then it won't happen. We also need to practice. And of course, if we only pray and not practice, at least we place the seed, the cause of enlightenment into our mind. It's a good thing, but you can probably figure it out why we cannot attain enlightenment only through prayers.
Then
I also read that. The Benasangya dira is a kalekapo yore.
Really?
Then titang ang sumunlan tayo, ba? Dira sida masibe munlam yore, ba?
Seed masibe.
Da drup top the masibe, ba?
Really?
Bena sangya dis kabo, ba?
Really?
Then it munlam gam na chik chena masibe munlam da ba cha.
Yeah.
Then this nuna bena give out thing lang some ninja that will give us shows this le lava da then shin melam dona ka marve yana una sangya ti chipo mi gorve mena tapju
세 모나 답지 치로 잠닝제지 상제 토비아 주 잠닝제 장수 셈 제네 근데 상제 토비아 모나다는 데로 냠다 편데 봐 가가 맞이는 데 와 말어 상제 토비아 주 잠닝제 장수 셈데 야보진 요르스 세제 류제 상제 토바르 효자네 양 요르스 상제 토바르 효자네 모나다 제가 모남큰 테이크 소소 제제 냠냐치 참니게 장쇼 셈서 주치는 요거 상제 토비아 팽게리
So then I read that question.
대화제 모나이나 지단 장쇼 셈도 제고 서면 대가스 모나지고 셈이 모나다디노 대지미 한데 뭐
Yeah, so I read that question before. So that was, is it better to make aspirations that are more achievable in this lifetime? So that was the last one of that Pure Land question here. And so there's no need to actually separate the prayers that you make into what's achievable and what's not achievable. But love and compassion of bodhicitta are the cause of attaining enlightenment. So cultivate that cause and then together with that, make a prayer to attain enlightenment in one lifetime, or you can just say very quickly. So these can all go together. You don't have to separate them. If it seems more achievable to cultivate love than enlightenment, for example, then you can combine them all into one and pray on the basis of that to attain enlightenment quickly. And in fact, if you have love, it will certainly help to quickly attain enlightenment. And actually, even though it is said one is born in Devachen by just making the prayer, actually it also means that you have to cultivate bodhicitta at least to some extent. So if you just completely forget about bodhicitta and just pray to be born in Devachen, then it's still questionable. So then, Garchen Rinpoche mentioned during his teachings that a practitioner should not lose his subtle drops during sexual intercourse. Why is this so? Is it possible to develop bliss during the Dumo practice even when we are losing our subtle drops from time to time during sexual intercourse? Deni Rinpoche Garchen Rinpoche Garchen nalam deni ngaso di tigle kamdira nyamya yo maris droba chibe kaplara deni tik yomsen kharis deni pena cham langaso droba chibe kapla tigle kesi nyamtu kesi nyamna deni tarong tumu dewa ki nyamna deni seya yorwe ni dewa tampoti yomsen kharis nyamma choba
어쨌든 감트 류라요나 장초 셈셈 동 감 장초 셈로 장초 셈 지단 장초 셈 그 군접 장초 셈도 니 요사를 요지사 제이트 감 장초 셈 데이터 냠손 마 장초 셈 저 제야 아까래 가서 저 루포트 냠손 감트 냠손나 장초 셈 장초 셈 제야 아까래 감 장초 셈 루포트 네디 코나코나 장초 셈 제야 주체만 보지 요사를 봐 어디 야상제 주치야 데 뉴티 냠손도 디 독효사티 야보요사 말에 시라 냠내 바시나 데도 모이나 티 초티 제야디 마냠도 야 노바요사리 노바요 남도 어제제 데리제 가리도
니 참슬란 디 냠마 삼나 냠시게라 베나 트로바치베 갑라
네네
데니 다롱 두모기 데와디 게토케도 에스
다트디 있어 지나
맞다 삽사세요.
삽사 치고 효리면서 냠나 삽사 치고 효리면서 이렇게 하고마다 제단 가게 다 강사 치파요 가게 제쇼지기로 와 치파 가게 제쇼지 말을 삼도라 제단 냠나시 도모도 냠도 효사 냠송도 제야 갈래 하고 있으려 삼도 주 냠송도 된도 다 안치 강사 치파 가게 치파요지라 가게 배샤는 안제 나반데 냠나시 도냐 또 가래 주야고 제 야고는도 와 저 제단 강사 소소 치파 하고 맞습니다. 저한테 말 안 듣다. 네. 치파요지 있어. 냠나양. Nyamdi jidang shira je ma lapsir, tati la khan diksa phagatu. Dumo shira je ya kale kha yores, kale kha yores la khan diksa. Phagasi.
So those subtle drops, they are also called bodhicitta drops, and there is a connection and yet a slight difference between. So it's not the bodhicitta necessarily that arises, but it's the sexual fluid drops that are lost, which are also called bodhicitta drops. But it is connected to the relative bodhicitta that we need to cultivate in our mind. And so the connection is that if one loses the bodhicitta drops, so one sexual drops, then it is more difficult for one to cultivate bodhicitta in one's mind. There are many things that could actually, it has a negative influence on a lot of things. And so one of them is that it's more difficult to cultivate bodhicitta in one's mind. And also another one is that then one's dharma practice declines in general. And so it's not very good to lose the drop as a practitioner. And regarding the bliss arising during the Dumo practice, so the bliss arising during Dumo practice is related to the heat, the warmth. So you have the warmth arising and then bliss. And so if you lose your drops, then it will be very difficult to also develop the warmth and therefore the bliss. So it's better to be very careful, to do your best not to lose the drop at all, because there are different people, but generally it is said that it has a very negative effect, and it can be very difficult for one then to cultivate the warmth and the bliss of Dumo. Does the Chakrasamvara empowerment authorize any lay practitioner to practice karma mudra?
Yab tap krangi, yom tshirap krangi. Yan sem zive chale ya, bombe chale yom, zeton song joba, yamyon song joba, tabshi song joba, senanda teri. O tene tanga zong de purba beset zona yuwa, nawa yab je tukdam gang, domba yom je tukdam gang, se yuwa nangtong song joba gang si yo. O ta tenju zong nawa yab domba yom. O tenju song shor zo se, so sem mo song shor ma de. Jidang di nyamlian tenju chi ya mari jidang 야명 시조시 한다도 간만 문제된 살아서 어디 레치하자 되냐 안도 텐주 집어 말에 텐주 지 고쇼는 냠내 야고 고쇼 다다다 공스에서 좀좀 감 창조 세마냠레스 냠 투미 소소데 냠내 야고나 아자 개여지 마테 냠 손은 적쇼 말에 쓰러와 어디 찾아야 되는데 교지 상마대야 초조 세요 말했을 때 제가 개치 뭘 하고 그래. 생각하면서 어떻게 냠냐 이제 냠냐더니 양은 서로 와서 소소 대도니 보냐면 됐을 거예요. 대도니 보냐면 됐을 거라서는 그때 신차용 말하면 돼. 차바지에 되는 되는 그런 점이 아주 차그래 돼. 춘의 용도 말해서 직장송 좀 지다만이나 다 시당제나 여러 가지스. 다 데모제나 전로제스. 다 도차제나 이다제스. Tivela charachis, charachis, sabzachis on charachis and sabzachis. What is on the end? Oh, you hear that on social Jason. What in? Not a chance of some charachis go to it. What they do? The kitchen boy or it. What I think that I'm going to issue something like late shots at the end. Come on, I'm school. It's an order.
So For the karma mudra practice and the chakras and vara empowerment, so we need to understand that what the deity represents, the union, is not actually necessarily an external union, but it represents a quality of your own mind. So the yap and the yum in union are a sign of unified method and wisdom, and that is complete within your own mind. So the method or skillful means aspect is the yap, the male, and the wisdom is the female aspect of your mind. Or when we speak about clarity and emptiness, then the clarity is the male and the emptiness is the female. So the union of yap and yum really are a symbol, a sign of the empty, clear nature of the mind, or the union of method and wisdom. In the Vajrakhilaya restoration, it says, may the samaya with the father appearance be restored. May the samaya with the mother emptiness be restored. May the samaya of union, appearance and emptiness, the union of appearance and emptiness be restored. So it is the nature of the mind that is to be recognized. It's not about the so-called karma mudra, and it's not necessary at all to even engage in a sexual union of karma mudra. And that, as you mentioned before, would require, if one engages in this practice, it would require one to be an excellent practitioner, as in never losing the bodhicitta drop. So if you lose the bodhicitta drop, if it's not stable, then you should not practice the karma mudra at all. If you really are realized and never lose your drop, then that could be a different case. But it's important to really treat that with great care, because if it is not practiced properly and it declines, then it can cause all kinds of difficulties. And so now what you really need to look at is, am I able or not to equalize all feelings of happiness and suffering, or pleasure and pain? If it's completely the same at all times, then you will not have any attachment in your mind. Otherwise, if there is attachment in your mind, if it's not quite the same, then such a union will become the cause of wandering in samsara. Thigten Somgen said in the Chittamani text that even a deity, if it gives rise to hatred, it will take birth in hell. And if it gives rise to ignorance, it takes birth as an animal. And if it gives rise to desire, it takes birth as a hungry spirit. Therefore, be very careful when you practice the deity, because the essence of the deity must be bodhicitta for it to be accomplished. So that's really very important.
That's it. Nima Milarepa, Tamarwanjirwa. Think it's Islam and Rixam, Marat Sayro. Then the Mara, the Milarepa, Kuran Lumba Sonra, Amat Shisare, Amat Shizimot, Yomar, the Amirubat Kitty, Kuran Ki Nima Gerganji Noa, Milarepa Gergan. There was a song, Gergante Shisare. The Gerganti booked it and one. You booked the Amanti Rubat Sasa the Bro, she's a lare. Milarepa Amirubat Sasa the Bro, she's booked and Aropa Shiro, she's a lare. The book, the Beja is to open Milarepa and Chupo Raconasma. Beja Gombos are what to do. Beja Milarepa now Chupo Rangama. Come by shaded in a Beja this door. The Beja kiss Rantigo the Landoa. Booked it, a Beja and Magos. Joke to us no secrets, and Magos in Robati, Ropachi was Ramdog. The Milarepa, the Zumat, nobody Marisra. The la take on it at this day, and Ordin. Sasa da, the Chodenda so Amirubat, Chodenda was soon. The Chitamala and Rogi Lare. Samja, that Rogonji Bodo, sounding it Kalasaya, the score. Then Chan Samto, Sonzi Lare. The Yazi, it's going to eat it. 그 공이 개차도 있어. 마르반지라 음지 수든가 라오르로. 공이 막 냠내 싫어하다 되지. 저다 마음 바첩톱 첨부 시작사리스다. 저 가바튼 루지. 담아 아트루 톱. 다지랑 제세서 잠시 제세와 밀라레바 뭐 파마도 제일 부모지랑 제세세. 밀라레 잠정. 나도 파메 제일 ran 제세세. 제세서 나만은 사치나 강바도 야야고 냠수시 신가도 다. 마르반종 진짜 야원도 라운도 고. 야때라 뒤에 밀라레바 가르송으로서 마르바든 로베 통 다 요함도 쉐레스. 어ත네 마 나 이삼수 냠내 요 말이스. 别讲生给人穷啥里花人穷花钱花的给谁很多是生给穷啥生给多钱不多人穷啥花谁了人穷那给谁很多是花的给谁很多是这是花的给谁很多是我花那我是没来的马把生给那我是可是那马个基本忙不错啥这把讲好基本忙不起的基本都是主要我是了晓得他这个嘛这种俺说他妈在通报的时候这些人俺说嘛我是经常这个嘛的吧
There's one story about Milarepa, and so that was after Milarepa had already met with Marpa and had already practiced for a while, and so then at one time he returned back to his homeland to see his mother, but when he got there, his mother had already died, and all he found was the ruins of their house and her bones. And then he tried to find his old teacher, but he also had already died. But he did find that teacher's son. And so then he asked the son, please help me collect the bones of my mother. I need help. And there still is some money hidden in our old house because it was a rich family. And if you help me, I will give you that money. And then the boy said, I don't want...
Becha.
Sorry. Oh my God. So it's not money, it's text, so it's almost the same word. Then I give you this text. Anyways, I don't want your texts because Milarepa was known to be a sorcerer. So he was quite scared of Milarepa, and he said that I don't even want that connection. You're going to cast a spell on me, but I'm going to help you. I just don't want your text. And so then Milarepa said that I will only protect you, but nobody will cause any harm to you. So then slowly they started talking and they spent the night and they made satsas together out of the bones and made a little stupa out of it. And so then Milarepa said, now I'm leaving. And the boy said, stay overnight. Tomorrow I will send you off with some food. And so then Milarepa said, okay, he will stay. And so then they spent the night talking. And so Milarepa shared his story of how he had met his guru, Marpa, and how he had practiced and so on. And then that boy said, it's incredible. You will be a great Mahasiddha in the future. So that means you might as well get back together with your sweetheart, Tsetse, the girl Milarepa was supposed to get married to when he was young. You get married, you build a house, you start a field, plant some crops, and live just like Marpa. And Milarepa responded, Marpa had a wife because it was a skillful means to tame beings. It was for the sake of sentient beings. But I'm not like that. I do not have practice like that. My practice is not as advanced. For example, it's like a fox trying to compete with a lion. If a fox tries to jump as high as a lion, and it will just fall down and break its neck or its spine. And Marpa is, of course, the lion. I'm like the fox. So Marpa is someone who had already attained enlightenment in the past. In previous lives, he already had accumulated all the merit and purified all the obscurations, and he really was actually a manifestation of Hevajra. So we are not the same. I'm not like Marpa. So the morale of the story is that no, we should not pretend or we should not act like someone on a higher level when we are ourselves not yet on that level, like the fox and the lion. So then next question, I would like to ask about the Tsewang Tsimba image on the Garchen Institute website. There are many clouds around the fire, around the deity. I wonder what their symbolism is. There is a blue deity with spread legs on the lower right corner. Who is that? And what does this deity symbolize?
제단지 짐바다 니 남카다 사이 상만 통지 가 상간 저 룩소 텐주 나오지 요라 상간 코나 제 남카다 사 상만 통지 전인티 요라 텐주 저 상제 요在线体验지로와 근데 담 믹스 통다 거기 요사만 믹스 통다 자시 요사만 좀도 짐바테 so the 매봉 다 드바니 파즈가 다 초스 매봉 요라 드니 뇽모 드바 타 세제 드바 니 파즈이 위 종지 드니 어때 매봉 세세리 근데 원보세는 잡아라 나고리 다트라와
근데 얘네한테 이 잠바 나나보르와 되게 숙당 뒤도
안에 숙당한테
숙당다고 가르치는 것도 맞아 거랑 가르치는 것도 가르치나 될라
다지도 놀아리 네 고지당한테 당한전년한테 다제 망보세디나 체딩이지만 생왕지발란 믹싱 드바만도 스네 니좀 这边讲那个讲成用车时间对吧？但是为那就别了嘛，但这吧有这个话面，咱把它没谁讲，这是这吧有那没那还可没是往这边了，这就能咱把它那或者学堂这几堂学堂下不做的呗，下不做的学堂先看来的。啊，那这没谁的，这是顶考着我那买的是啦。这忙不在青岛的中安当一下的，忙不去。挺多街当看参参跟着忙不知道参开始讲了。
So the clouds and the fire is a bit different. So the clouds, so I'm not aware of that having any significance. So it's just a kind of a tradition of Tanka painters to also paint a beautiful surrounding with sky and clouds and some kind of land and hills and like that. It's just more a tradition and probably doesn't have a deeper meaning. But the fire around the deity, that's a special characteristic of the wrathful deities, and it's a sign of having burned away the two obscurations. And then that deity, which is blue, on the right side is actually black Zambala. And Zambala is a wealth god. A wealth god. So then there often the Tanka painters, they add different figures into their Tanka that often not necessarily for any reason. Sometimes there is a reason, like sometimes there are lineage masters in there. For example, in here, in that image, there's also an image of Garchen Yongyab, the previous incarnation of Garchen Rinpoche. So that's related to the lineage. But the black Zambala in the image, I'm not aware of that having any special meaning. I don't know the reason why that would be in there. Garchen Rinpoche talked about skandhas and emptiness of self. He also talked about madhyamaka, logic, extreme positions, and emptiness. He encouraged to learn about skandhas, logic, and reflect on emptiness. Could you say something about the importance of madhyamaka? Are there any texts or teachings recommended that we should learn from and practice? 봉봉한 사람 봉보당 동반이 걸라만 무송송 되니 오마라 되니 오마 되니 롱 리바 되니 타 지마 롱마 되니 동반이 무송송 디양 디슬럽충 지나야 버리 송송 되니 럽충 간다전 지고리 베나 오마 엄마 가르치는 키 전부 도스라 키 전부 겸생 가르 이나 럽진 치고 겸생라 되니 키 전부 이나 되니 이게 다고 다야 야나 가쳐다니야 가르 럽진 간다자 지고리 가바다고리 가르로고리
다들 지난 배자 다야 망보여로 배자나 엄마이나 엄마야다 망보여로 엄마 주파스레도 자바시라 도록 자바시라 텐주파스 안티 드반다 사라 다바서도 엄마 주파스도 어때 요래 다베 드반다 있어서 살 다바서라 어때 다다 자바시라 도록 송로와
그냥 담보 드링캔디
담보 도록 안지 네,听着吧，兄弟，下学生，这些别讲究这些呢，都讲究什么的，写了里头了，这些是吧？写了里头是我们同大众是吧？这些这我这是是这大朋友的看子也不知道过，那么我吧，这是哪有啥的，我们做了有了，我这是纪律真的做我这的头发的染发工吧，上马系统那也不的是的，头发现在他在看了年呀。就是年了吧，3%的说了不用去这么大，做什么，我们什么的，我们现在也没去啊，我听说系统那也我认识的，什么都是吧。我这当这别讲忙不大嘛多，就几个的呢，我是可是呢，讲说什么讲呀，我忙不有了吧，这几天的就来提写了不了，这说刚东尼过了，但没同他弄的送有了吧，我这是我认识么多了吧。这其他他知道，这个南北球那路看绿的，有天看绿的，这还可以就是了吧？所以我在南北球就看绿的，但经常就当那种三类把这种在同毛毛在大气气球的拉票了吧？三类把这种南北球种族都是拉票嘛，那他，我这几率在南北球等于什么？但上期就没得可样的，可。칼라고르 제 네로 강주 샬마 토제 제수 치바본 정도 샬마 바데 네로 강데 수제 가바자도 야마 네로 강주리다 하고야 팽거와 this
so first regarding any texts or how you can learn about madhyamaka or emptiness. There's of course a lot of Buddhist books. For example, there is the root of wisdom, that's Uma Tavasherab by Nagarjuna, and then there's a commentary by Chandrakirti, which is called Entering the Madhyamaka. For example, you can read that, but even better, for example, would be the Bodhicharyavatara and the chapter on wisdom. There's a lot about bodhicitta in there too, but about madhyamaka, especially in the chapter on wisdom in the Bodhicharyavatara. And then to learn about the skandhas or the aggregates and the elements and so on, you can study the Abhidharma teachings. But it's very good to study the teachings and to reflect on them and to practice them. Studying also means to listen to others' teachings and so on. And studying, reflection means to really think about them deeply. And then finally, we also have to put them into practice. Actually, of all these texts, the Bodhicharyavatara is probably the one to choose, because not only do you learn about wisdom or emptiness there, also there's there are many teachings on bodhicitta in there, which is very important. So why is it important to learn about that? It's because that is the view of Buddhism, and the view of Buddhism teaches how things really are, the true nature of things. And because that's how things really are, there is no one who can refute it. It cannot be any other way, because that's how things are. So, for example, nowadays many scientists are analyzing the the Buddhist teachings, and even if they do, they really cannot find any ultimate flaw in the Buddhist view. And that's why it is said that the Buddhist view is so profound, because all it really speaks about is really the nature of things, the nature of how things really are. And because that's how things are, nobody can claim anything else, because that's how things really are ultimately. So for this reason, because that's how things really are, it can only be of some benefit to know about that. I have received both the Vajrayogini and the Deva Dorje empowerments. In keeping with the commitment of these empowerments, I practice the Deva Dorje sadhana every day. If I do that Sevang Tsimpa practice daily, will I still be upholding my commitment from the Vajrayogini and the Deva Dorje empowerments?
지난 하제이라 냠네 제신 마스 치톰네 야르스 데 강야나 지난 가레가나 제밤도 스르와 하제이트 지나 저와 참지 이시롱 제이스다 데인디 촌이 통 첼로 마스 촌이 통 첼로 만다스 요레스 돈다 감지가레스 어때인디 하제이라 냠네 지나 라신 바든 로 그레스 데 냠네 망보제 라 망보 검나데 안테 가사나 제미바 만다스테 미바 제일 템포 차가디 상 갈레 요레스 데 저나 가레 하나 데最近你们今天要是什么都是，我的学做在这期天上学的是说你们今天这个也是吧？
So whichever the deity is, it generally is better to practice a single deity and practice it really well. That is better than practicing all kinds of different things, because that way you never really familiarize yourself with one thing really well. And it doesn't matter which deity you practice, because they are all wisdom beings, and within the expanse of primordial wisdom, all the Buddhas are one. It is said that reality itself, or dharmata, manifests itself in many different ways. It expresses itself in many different ways, but it arises out of a single basis. So they are all the same. It doesn't matter which deity you practice. And also, if you practice many different deities all the time, then it will be difficult to really gain some stability in one visualization. And that's actually most important, to be really stable and have a very strong visualization with one deity. And so for that reason, it's better to focus your practice mainly on one particular deity. And of course, sometimes if you have more time, then you can also sometimes practice different sadhanas, different deities. Is it possible to combine this practice with Dummo, for example, with the simple version with Ahung Vajra recitation taught by Rinpoche? If yes, were to include it in the sadhana?
Karchina. Ale jeje tang mo dos ya tang dixare. Ya hakos ngarang ne jaga zurade. Ya ta hakos ro. 어쨌든 제렘 템포 곰도 지나라. 제렘 템포 저 곰디나 또 라시 차운 그래서 그래. 어떤 믹스지 다 곰도 고 말고 제렘 템포시 세 많이 디나. 냠나시 톰도 초 라시 제용 그래다. 나도 남도 가려서 저 롱 가려서 저 손도 내서 혀 말해. 그래서 다리 활동 중 송송 송어는 뭐지 다리. 활동세 저어때 롱 파트 맞죠. 샘스로 내서 비야 돼. 그래서 활동 줄이야 저도 뭐 제용 그래. 어떻게 근데 이제면 지나 고 말을 그러나 뭐가 된 법이지. 냠나 치디 되고 말 샘 야고 냠나 치도 또 뭐라지 시험 교사. 제람 된 법이지. 되지는. mixi go mares. Oh, go mare. Go yabo tempo chason. Ingemente go ya mare. Jehu sera. Susu mi padembo. Oh, re, deba ingemente. Yanto zo se jerem tempo. Semt ma shole. Semt 다시 좀 보시 좀 하는 수도 좀 대바티 미관의 디디나这个种说我这开始想要没什么人这个这当弄出把门做偏修啥吧我这就起地的这个我们的呢啊这那一见一见面听到这个呀么多是吧可是他在当中工作过的咱们就是你多年期就话动手机了第是把都没看到起地是我们的那这个是吧这个没关系这把就话啥事都是弄把这下了吧然后呢是多年前多少多年前没得他这些他就话动手机这是我们的那这是这就话动手机的呢这是就是工作那这是把没关系我们的那要不然是嘛你拿这样没有没是这个呀么都是吧
So there's no need to combine Tumo with the Tsevanzimpa sadhana because the quality of Tumo, the warmth of Tumo actually arises naturally if your awareness remains undistracted. And so there is actually no need to add things like the Amahong and so on or some other Tumo visualization to the sadhana. That's not necessary. Also, Garchen Rinpoche today, he was talking about the importance of abiding at the navel, and then the winds stay at the navel, and the winds move naturally and not fiercely as in the Dumu, and it's okay if it's just natural. There is no need to retain the winds and so on. It's just normal, just breathe normally and focus on the visualization according to the sadhana, single-pointedly. And actually from single-pointedness, naturally, the qualities of Tumu will arise, the warmth and so on. There is no need to combine anything, to mix any practices. If you still want to practice the Tumu or Omahung visualization, then you can first complete the sadhana of Tsewang Tsimpa, and after you are done with the sadhana, then you have some empty time in between, and then you can visualize the Tumu visualization or the Omahung Vajra recitation kind of separately, but maybe afterwards. Can you explain more fully about what karmic creditors are and how we are connected? This has been mentioned many times, and I don't think I fully understand.
Si jiwa ngi mambo zi ona zo ke len cha. Si ji zo ke len cha. De dong na che len cha. De mambo dong yu na de de na se ke len cha. Control chi le da control han de u fong cha ya zu len cha. Wo zhen zhu len cha zun zhan men da yu sa le. Wo zi sun na de de si len cha mei zo yu ma jiwa ku ruan de jiwa lang san na. Wo de de zhu wa. Len cha san da ji ma ngi me hu long yu de. Hu long dong da ngi ma be xiang de ngi me zai mambo dong yu na. Ting nga jiwa ji ma lang di ke da ze dong xiao di len cha yu ro de na sa yu na san zhong di dong na che len cha gu chuo jum som qin na de yu feng cha de len cha nge me zai zi wo na di zo ke len cha wo da de len cha sa ten zhu yu de da ti pong pa so gu so pa ni du nga so de jiu so dong ju zhong xie zou zai lam do da tang bo gong qiu ci jun zhong sen na ma yi dang guo就要了吧我这广播原天中是求求什么他说了那么一当这个种就要了吧我这呢广播原天中是什么他说了这他的这种你这种人多吧这种吧这人家活动讲中是这多这人家是当年没人家是吧所以说旅下差基本当个哪提讲我这是没关系 被做着动了，做着了的中些苍学的，这来哈，这就去过学。
So a karmic creditor is someone with whom you have a karmic debt from a previous life, and so they come in this life to collect their karmic debt. And so there's different kinds of karmic creditors. They're not all the same. There are some that, for example, in a previous life, if you have killed them, then in this life they are kind of come back as a karmic creditor to take your life. Or if you have beaten and abused and injured others in previous lives, then in this life they come back and cause illness and disease. Or if you have stolen and robbed others in previous lives, then they come back and they rob from you, they impoverish you. So there's all kinds of different karmic creditors, but it's someone that you have a karmic debt open with, and now they come to collect that karmic debt, and that manifests in different ways. So basically we are purifying the karmic debt, and then also so then we make offerings to them to purify that karmic debt. For example, in the Chöd practice, the Chöd practice speaks about 4 kinds of guests, and the first one is the guest of the higher beings, the jewels, which refers to the 3 roots. Secondly, is the guests of enlightened qualities, which are the protectors, such as Mahakala. And then third are the guests of our compassion, which are the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. And number 4 are the guests, which are our karmic creditors, with whom we have a karmic debt that is still to be repaid. And so for them, we make offerings where we shata dekare.
So we in
the Chöd practice still. So in the Chöd practice, so how we purify this karmic debt by making offerings. So in the Chöd practice, we are offering our own flesh, blood, and bones. And so we offer ourselves up to them, and in this way we purify the karmic debt. Or, for example, when we practice a sur smoke offering, in the sur practice, actually, we also make offerings to these 4 kinds of guests.
Thank you so much, Drupon, Rinchen, Dorje, and for answering these questions. Thank you, Ina, for translating. And this officially finishes our winter event. So everyone, thank you for your participation online. And we wish you all well and take care. And please tune in next Saturday for Garchen Rinpoche's teachings. Bye.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.